Anne?
Sorry, does this need to be recorded, by the way, Claudia? I don't know if that's.
I think it is being recorded.
Oh, I just saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's being recorded, sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Ann Campbell, she, her, and I'm the secretary.
Amy?
Yeah, hello everyone. Amy Anderson here, Chair of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee.
And Theo?
Hi, my name is Theo Lada. I use he, him pronouns. Thank you all for being here.
I'll just start. Barb? Oh wait, there's two. Barbara Baczynski.
Hi, Barbara Wyszynski, Portland Cop Watch, she, her,
Cool, and then Barb.
whatever.
I see Zainab is here.
Oh, sorry, I was just going off of, sorry, I was reading off the page. Zainab.
Hi, are we doing introductions? I'm sorry I'm late. It's
Yeah,
Zainab.
we're just doing
Well,
name.
she and her pronouns. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. No, I don't think there's another piece of members. Cool, Barb. Jared.
Hi, everyone. Jared Hager, Department of Justice, he, him pronouns.
Cool, and then Asena.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Asena Lawrence. I'm a senior policy advisor in Mayor Wheeler's office. My pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. Claudia.
Did you say my name, Taji?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Hi, welcome everyone to the steering committee meeting. My name is Claudio, and I'm the project assistant for PCCEP.
Thank you. And I think the last, oh, Mary Claire.
Hi there, Mary Claire Buckley, Portland Police Bureau, she, her, hers.
Thank you. Judith.
Hello, everyone. Judith Mowry, staff. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. And then I think the last one is Rochelle.
Hi, Rochelle Silver, community member.
My mic is on.
Oh.
And Barb, she's here with me, sharing the mic.
Hey, y'all. My name is Barb Rainish, she, her pronouns, and I am a community member and a peer to Amy, or peer support to Amy.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. And thank you, Amy, for the help. Great. So we're just going to jump right into it for the agenda today. We're starting with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and sort of a status update where it's at. Obviously, with the unfortunate departure of Kia from PCCEP, we have, I don't know if that was public information yet. I hope that was. Well, it was, yeah, it was sent out to that list, so I don't want to slip up there. Yeah, so with the unfortunate departure, there is no longer a chair for the TRC, and there also has been a lot of discussions with the mayor's office around planning and resources necessary to continue the work. And those updates and information hasn't been necessarily sent out to the community yet, so it's sort of just folks who are engaging with PCCEP who may be aware of sort of the things we're trying to figure out right now, one of those things being the stipend. And so there's about, I believe, a list of 30 or so community members that Kia has been emailing updates, and that was the last update that she sent to them. And there has been outreach from a few of those members of the community who were offering support for more planning work. And I obviously would love to continue to work, but I wanted to bring this issue to the steering committee so we can discuss. And Asena also had an email you sent today that I thought was interesting and led me to have a little bit of hope that we can try to keep some pieces of the TRC planning committee together, but maybe not a full-fledged idea. So Asena, could you at least initially just share what that email was, and then we could just sort of open the conversation and talk a little bit about it.
Sure. We were talking about the funding request. There was a request for FTE, so like a position at the city that would help support the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and just the budget process at the city when there are new funds requested for something. The city has to see a proposal first before they're able to, accept it or deny it or whatever. So that's just the process at the city. We had a meeting with some budget people, and that was the guidance that we were given. And then as far as stipends goes, I know that the city is currently reviewing a stipends policy for all of its boards and commissions. I know that PCCEP is unique, but the majority of boards and commissions don't receive stipends. And so Ashley Jaden in Civic Life is leading that. I know Judith is part of that team of people at the city that are, going to make a recommendation to council. And so as far as stipends go for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for their commissioners, I really just I look to the policy people who are developing that policy, and when it comes forward, it'll come forward to city council, and then city council will decide if the city has enough resources to allocate to that. So I'm not part of that team of people, but I would.
No, yeah, and thank you for sharing and relaying that information to us. Yeah. Ellie, you have a question?
Yeah, just, to sort of open the conversation, I guess the FD position, I understood it to be something that would be affiliated and assigned to the actual TRC. The question that Lakiana raised at the previous meeting was about the stipend specifically, and specifically for BIPOC members of the committee. And his suggestion was, at least his personal view was, he wasn't going to continue to do work on it until there were stipends. So that was sort of the last word on it, and then Kia suspended things. And I think the decision that we have as a steering committee now to make is whether to, as a body, decide to hit pause until that question of stipends is resolved, or whether to continue to have a subcommittee working on this launch in some fashion and continue to push for the stipends. What I was led to understand is that stipends will not be coming next week or next month or anytime soon, if at all. So my sense of the timeline was that the earliest that could happen would be probably May or June. And so I guess the question for us is, do we want to just put everything on hold until then? Or is there energy and willingness to continue this, the planning subcommittee in some fashion?
Elliot, can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
Where did the May or June date come from for the stipends? Who at the city?
I just thought that in talking to you, I thought it was you who was saying like, no budget stuff could be done before.
I think it was the fall bump you were discussing, right? I sent in that email, not May or June.
I don't think I set a date for stipends.
Yeah, no, sorry. That the next discussion around budget of any sort would occur in the fall bump, and that was when we could officially make a proposal to. So there could be. And to follow up on Elliot's question, what might have to happen is, in some capacity or another, the planning committee continues enough to the point where they can create a proposal to city council come this fall for the FTE and for the entire TRC. However, the entire TRC planning process is what is currently halted because of the lack of the stipend. So unless there was an ability in the proposal to ask for retroactive support to the planning members, which doesn't seem like something that would be entertained by city council or even unorthodox. But I'm unfamiliar if from my understanding, even PCCEP, for example, had 2 consulting companies plan the process for this body. So I would think that if we were to do something as sensitive as a TRC, there should be allocated fundings to ensure there's a successful commission. And I'm not saying this to you necessarily. I'm literally just speaking in general. Like, this isn't, I don't think it's I don't think it's right for us to continue if we're not going to get the support that we need. And I'm not necessarily pointing in any direction to anyone about that.
Let me just say the May or June, I think that had to do with the budget for next year. That's usually when the planning for the budget happens. And so I think the conversation was like, right now, there's not going to like all of a sudden appear a pot of money when everyone's slashing things, but that, in May or June, possibly that can be built into a new budget. But if there's a possibility, if money exists out there for stipends, if you think it could happen earlier, let us know.
I will. I'll bring this back up to my leadership. Again, this stipends question. I don't know if we're legally allowed to give it to people based on their racial or ethnic identity. Maybe Judith has a little bit more information as our stipends policy lead. I had made a recommendation for fall because when I had spoke with Kia last about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, she said that if they were going to make a proposal, it would likely come at the end of summer, and that's past the the time that the city council approves the budget. They approve it in June usually. And so my colleague who leads budget for our office, when we met with Theo and Judith, we, just talking through these requests, they had said that, maybe fall bump would be in a more appropriate place if council were to approve the proposal. I hope that makes sense. It's all quite confusing.
Thank you, Asena. And then I think it was Amy and then Anne.
Okay, I've been thinking a lot about what you guys are saying. It'd be awesome if money was on the table, but money should not be the reason we do things. It should be an opportunity if it comes along. I clearly heard the mayor say there's not a chance in Kingdom Come that we're going to get something different that no one else has. So I'm already convinced that we either do this because it's something PCCEP, strives to want to put on the table, or we don't. And, it's basically, there's going to be a lot of different things that come through PCCEP that are going to require a lot of additional work that we have to determine whether or not we want to take it on. And we already agreed to take on the committee. So if we stop now or bail out now, is there a chance in the future it could rise up again, But that's just my take.
And I respectfully disagree, because I think it's a little more nuanced than the fact that we took on the TRC. I think there is a lot more intricate pieces to this that are unveiling as we speak, and that we have the opportunity to either, you're right, write a letter to the city, or excuse me, to the community, and explaining why we are halting the process as of now, or we have the ability to continue in some capacity with a plan to ensure that there's not too much work happening by this body. And I also respectfully think that no planning, like the PCCEP, for example, was not planned by a free body of people, which would take hours upon hours. So the commissions are not just, community members do not just come together and create commissions at the city's leisure and do it for free, especially. So
yeah, we're not creating a commission. We're creating the foundation for a framework for a commission. We're just a committee.
And so I'm just expressing what the existing members of that planning committee have expressed. I'm not saying this is my personal opinion, but and so and that's all I know on that specific topic. But thank you, Amy, for sharing those remarks. Anne, oh sorry, wait, no, Anne and then Judith, sorry.
Thank you. I was involved in discussing the Truth and Reconciliation process at the Settlement and Policy Subcommittee. And then I did go to meeting, I think 1 or 2 meetings with Kia, and I support all of her efforts and leadership and knowledge. I agree that it's an incredibly sensitive process to set up the foundation of that. And as we became aware of more information around that and the sensitivity in our community at this time. I think that the issues, the support that is needed for that is much more than we have at this time with staff. And Lakiana, I don't know if he's here this evening, but his request that any work that is done on a truth and reconciliation be by people of BIPOC be monetized. So in listening to Asena, you know, in terms of the timelines and other issues about that, I just think that we need to kind of look into other issues about it at this time. I don't think that we can go forward at this time with this process.
Thank you, Anne. Judith?
Thank you for allowing me to weigh in. I just wanted to propose that you consider other ways to get to the same end. So the city is legally kind of hamstrung and having to do everything in a race neutral way. If the process was actually put in the community, they would not have those same limitations. You could hire consultants that can put together a proposal and have a budget for them to place stipends in the process. PCCEP members could participate in that. You could, you know, so there are just some ways I think that we could get to where I hear people where the values go that might look different from just doing it within this narrow avenue. And if anyone would like to, you know, do any of that exploration, I'm happy to talk to anybody, and thanks for letting me weigh in.
And yeah, and one more thing I forgot to mention on that topic exactly is that the community members that reached out with some of those resources for the planning process had this individual named, I believe, Emmanuel, I could get that name wrong, an individual who works on truth and reconciliation work nationally, and he was willing to speak with us and work with us on a pro bono to just get consulting on like what would be the planning process of everything. And so I think it might be good to at least like have that meeting, discuss that with him and discuss the problems that we're facing as of now and sort of work from there. And I wanted to at least wait until tonight before I responded to the community member and let them know. And so if we're, you know, we're at just a juncture necessarily, but we're not making a unilateral decision today or anything. And so I think it would be a good idea to just hear what hear what he has to say. Can you agenda to the chat again? All right. And sorry, I thought it was an item related to this. And yeah, so I think we should have that conversation, and I am willing to, anyone who's interested in coming to that meeting, please let me know and I can make sure you're looped in if you're not already on that email that was sent. And yeah, Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree actually with what a lot of what Amy was saying. I do feel like to some extent PCCEP took on this process, and we could decide to put a halt to it, or you know, at any point for whatever reason. But I do think that we should have some group of people who's continuing to investigate a way forward rather than just stop it. And to do that, because Kia has now left, I think we need to figure out whether there's anyone who's willing to facilitate that process of moving forward. And I personally have said that my bandwidth is stretched too thin. I'm focusing on Corporate Patrol, so I am not volunteering to do that. So I don't want to volunteer anyone else. But if we're going to move forward, I think we should identify who the leadership, whether it's one or two people from PCCEP, is going to be to engage in the conversations that Taji, you talked about, explore possibilities, be able to make a proposal for stipends or explore Judith's option. All of that stuff is going to require work and leadership. And you know, I don't know if anyone here is willing to take on that role.
I will say for now that I'm willing to, but if anyone else is also willing to engage with me, that would be helpful to have someone supporting.
I'm willing to help with that effort.
Okay, so once again opening it still because I also already have other stuff. So if there are other people who want to also do it and who have more time on their hands, then speak. What I will say, and so we'll, and if there is anyone, please just reach out and be like, I'm really interested in helping with some of this leadership work. And then I'd be like 100% willing to hand it over to anyone. But for now, we'll just sort of work with that impression of me and working together on this to just at least listen. And we'll be sharing all the updates to the rest of the committee and let them know what comes out of that meeting. And for the meeting that we'll have with the it's not PSU's conflict resolution team, as Senna specifically. Actually, it is 2 PSU staff who are the ones who have been connecting us to those folks. So it could be the folks who work there who are connecting us to these other folks, but I don't know if they work there exactly. I know they have pdx.edu emails though. So yes.
Ozzy, I have a question real quick.
Sure.
Can we do a call out to the community to see if there are other folks out there who may want to take on this charge? It's a chance for us to expand the opportunity to the community because maybe there's someone with more experience and time, you know, that could really be a lead in this endeavor. I think we're just making it too closed loop by just saying us. We just do a post. We've got Facebook, we got other ways. We just put it out there. Anyone interested in co-facilitating, you know, give us a holler. We need to invite the community.
And we had 30 people at that, you know, subcommittee meeting. So there's definitely people in the community. I would just ask that in the interim before, you know, that group could meet, Taji and Ann, if you could send out a message to those people and let them know what's going on. You know, Kia has left and now you two are taking interim leadership in moving this forward, just so people know what's happening, because the last message was just we're on pause.
Right, and I'll also make sure to make that, Amy, to your point, I'll make that, if offer it up to anyone else if they're willing to or want to, and engage with Anne on this on a bigger level of responsibility. And we had community members co-chair before back in the day, from what I remember. So thank you, Zinab, or thank you, Amy and Elliot. Zinab, go ahead.
I just had a question about what is, when you, as I'm getting familiar with PCCEP and different subcommittees, what does it entail to, what does the work entail, the responsibilities entail when you talk about getting people on board with something? As I was reading through Kia's briefing about the TRC, but what, not just about just this, that's a subcommittee, but what are the things? Is there some place where I can read up what the responsibilities are when you do co-chair, lead, work on, step in? What?
No, we have to leave that for the retreat. This is not a foundation group. We got to do that at the retreat. So, that's why the paperwork's not in alignment.
Counter to that, I would just answer, from my understanding as of now, for what co-chairs have done, not to say that this is codified in any way, but the co-chairs have handled the agenda, and they also are the point people for that specific subcommittee. And if speaking specifically about the TRC, there's just more connecting with mayor's office and these community members who have been engaging with us. So you would be, you know, not responsible necessarily speaking, but you would go to those meetings and report back either to that email list, which is the existing subcommittee meta, and then sharing that update at the general body meeting. That's basically it, and staying and corresponding with folks in the community about the TRC's planning process so far.
Thanks, Taji. Barb, can you, I didn't understand exactly what she was saying about the retreat and what we're going to bring to the retreat. Is she saying more the formal? Barb, please explain what you meant by what you just said. I'm sorry, was that Barb or was it, I don't know.
No, that was me. Excuse me. What I was referring to is, remember when you mentioned the other day that the mission statements don't line up in the paperwork? Okay, there's a lot of other things in the paperwork that like bylaws, updates, and other things we were gonna do, like back this spring, that really need to be looked at. It's just hard to do when you only got 2 hours, an hour and a half. So I'm thinking the retreat is the place to talk about what I call the foundation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. I guess Judith has a different opinion on that, but I just wanted to get a clarity on that. But Taji, you did answer my question really was, what have you got, if you have sat on committees, what has been some of the roles and responsibilities that you have done, whether or not it's formalized or in a document itself. I understand. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Taji.
Okay, we
Then-
should,
Yeah, we're gonna probably have to move on, but I will also say that we'll be sending out the agenda for the retreat come tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow or Thursday after the steering committee reviews it and then sends it to the whole body. So, and we will be discussing myriad of things, but we won't be getting to the bylaws. The bylaws will be reviewed by the steering committee and then discussed and then sent to the steering committee's this meeting next month and discussed and then work from there. That's what's gonna happen for that, and the group agreements we'll be discussing as well. Theo.
Yeah, just to be clear, I know you want to move on real quick, but just to be clear about retreats, no business is going to be done because this is a recorded meeting. No business is going to be done at retreats. No business can be done. It's not going to be any of that. One of the items that can be mentioned at a retreat is going to be what Judith called a parking lot, which I didn't hear that term before. But Judith has always given me all the wisdoms, or you can bring up important things and then table those things where you can address them at a later date in front of the public. Because if business is going to be done, the public has to be involved. There has to be community there. There has to be other people. It has to be an open public meeting. So just to be clear, no business is going to be done at the retreat.
okay, so should we move on to Corp Patrol?
Yeah, did you want to take this?
Yeah, so yeah, and I think, just to follow up on what Theo was saying, something like the bylaws is especially important to discuss in public since it's the guiding document for this public group. So our next topic is Corp Patrol. We had a meeting and Taji and I put ourselves forward as people willing to work on this. And no one else seemed wanting to sort of to assume leadership or vie for leadership. So we have taken on that role. The MAP app will, instead of closing on the 12th, I think it's closing on the 28th. So we will probably have our next meeting on the 28th because in some sense, there's no point in meeting before we actually have all the input from the community, at least that initial input. And then we also will be planning a town hall for March 4th. So we will get additional input from them. The other thing that is in the works is hiring of a data analyst to not only go through the MAP app, but to go look at past city surveys, to look at testimony before city council, as much data as we can collect to analyze it quantitatively and qualitatively to help guide our recommendations. So if you look at the MAP app, at the last meeting, we made several suggestions, and I just looked at it before this meeting. None of those have gone up, and Sam is not here, but maybe Asena, you could pass this on to Sam, or if you know of why the things that need to be updated, the date when it's closing, it still says February 12th. The questions that we talked about adding are not up there. The question that the community had about being anonymous, there's nothing on there that indicates that. So I don't know, Asena, if you had any information about that.
Yeah, I have some updates. Thank you, Elliot. So the day that we talked about it, Sam reached out to the people that manage the website. I think it's probably the same people that do it for our land use. Sam and I are not talented enough to be able to manage it on our own. It's through a bureau. They're making those changes on Wednesday. So tomorrow is what they promised us that they would be done by. So Sam and I will check in with them tomorrow just to make sure that's happening. As far as the address, even though it says it's required, you don't have to put your name or address. You can put a fake if you want to submit it now. And we told this to the other advisory councils yesterday. You can put a fake address in or City Hall's address, whatever you would like, because the objective is not to get your name or your information. It's just to get your input. It's supposed to be a safe place. So those changes should be made tomorrow, and I don't know why they wouldn't be. And I'm sorry about the delay. They told us they were working on something very time sensitive, but that they'd have it done by Wednesday of this week.
Yeah, in terms of the anonymous thing, I hear you, but I think then we should say something on the website, because the point is if the public comes to it and they're asking for an address and that's impeding people from signing up, then that's counterproductive. So maybe it should say you could list a fake address, or list the City Hall address, so that people don't take that as an obstacle. But thank you for following up on that, and we'll all look forward to seeing that up tomorrow. So that's basically the shape of where we're going with this. We're still shooting for trying to come up with recommendations by March, April, to present to City Council. We're still working on trying to get a work session with the City Council so that we can get some intermediate feedback from them on our intermediate proposals. But let me just open it up to see if there are other comments or questions about where we are.
When one other comment I'll make, or update, I guess, is when we had our work session last week about this Core Patrol specifically in planning the town hall, we had a good amount of turnout from the community and had a lot of great questions. And so one thing that I think Theo was also going to work on is an FAQ for the Core Patrol, so that it can have some basic questions together. What is Core Patrol? What is this going to look? What is this process going to, lead to? And ways people can get connected and whatnot. And so it seemed like there was a lot of questions. We went past time by over a bit. And so I'm hoping we can meet again. I think Elliot, you said the 28th. That's Sunday, but I'm thinking we were discussing maybe the 18th or not the 18th. The 18th is the racial equity. So maybe like the 25th to do another work session to answer and field more questions, but also to sort of, as the map app closes, discuss where we're going from there and meeting frequency and whatnot. So, or you're the facility, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Tachi. Ann?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, the meeting was great and there was a lot of wonderful information shared. Did we capture what people said at that meeting in the notes? Was anyone taking notes? I'm not sure. I wasn't. But I guess we could listen to the recording. And the other thing that I'm wondering, I know that at the meeting it was discussed that we would have a meeting this Thursday at 5. Is there a email list of people that were, how are we going to let people know that?
No, I definitely messed up.
It's really great though. It's really great.
Yeah, I messed up in sort of assuming we would have the weekly meetings from there. And I understand that there's a lot of fatigue in just having all these meetings. So when I brought this up to Sam and Elliot last week, we just agreed it would be easier to start having more frequent meetings come when the close of the map app. And so it's hard. I don't know how to tell that to the people who are there, because they may all be expecting a meeting, but if they don't see anything on the site, hopefully they'll get that it's not happening. We can maybe post now, like the next one, if that's possible, Theo or Claudia, to post the 25th, so people know, like, okay, so they're not going to have it this week. They're going to be having it on the 25th, and just like the same what was it called? Work session, Core Patrol work session, something like that.
Did we get I asked people to put emails into the chat, Theo or Claudia, do you know if people did, or did we grab those?
I got 2 emails, but that's it.
Yeah, we got emails. If people just email the PCCEP info email, then they can be put on the big list, and that's the easiest route. So this is recorded, so this is a great plug for them to just email that PCCEP info, then they can get added to the list.
But in other words, the
In other
people
words,
who
the people who did, I wrote.
Okay, could you send that to Taji and I so we could communicate with those people? And Anne, you make a really good point. I will work with Taji on a summary of what happened at that meeting, along with the link to the recording, so to sort of catch everyone up, not only who was at the meeting, but also the larger PCCEP distribution list. So one other thing that happened at that meeting, in addition to the map app, was the idea of soliciting proposals or ideas from the community that could go up on the PCCEP website. And so we're going to be sending that request out to the community, different community groups in the next couple of weeks, so that before the town hall, people could look at the map app at comments, but they could also look if there are groups that actually have fleshed out ideas for alternatives to the police. They could look at those as well. So we're, yeah, I thought it was a really good meeting, and we're going full steam ahead. There are lots of questions, and I think the big issue is going to be about hiring this data analyst. So maybe Theo, you can give us an update on how that process is going to work.
Sure. I want to do the job description, write up the job description. I'll have a draft to, I guess not just the co-chairs, I guess the entire PCCEP distribution list. And then you can all send me your feedback. I would ask that you keep it all concise, because job descriptions are supposed to be really, really concise and brief. It doesn't have to go into super detail. So I'll have that to you by the end of the week, send it out, and then we'll move forward in the process about trying to get a contract work. I meet with the budget peeps soon, and then I'll pitch that to the budget peeps, and then we'll see how quick we can get it turned around.
And one other thing Theo mentioned is that if you go with what I think you called sole source, so like non-majority owned or women-owned consulting places, then you don't need to have like 3 bids, and it's a quicker process. And I think that would probably align with the values of PCCEP to go in that direction anyway. So
there's a limit to how much can be spent on those contracts, but I'll have better insight on that when I meet with the finance folks. Okay,
great. Time yet on March 4th? Oh, when is it going to be? Zainab is what you're asking. Yeah, we hadn't thought that far. Probably a 2-hour meeting, maybe 5:30 to 7:30. You know, something after the workday, just to.
And one other thing I'll say on the town hall planning is that it didn't seem like a very not much happened in the sense of planning for the town hall last week when we had that meeting. And so when follow up from that meeting, there was an individual who was there who I'm connecting with about some more clear strategic planning behind the town hall, like what sort of things we want to be talking about, what sort of questions to ask to make sure we can have sort of a fruitful and meaningful conversation with the community, especially around something that's very sensitive to some communities or not. And so as I get updates, I'll send them out. All I know now is that we'll be having a panel initially, and the rest of it will be saved for open people giving their testimony, giving their experiences, will be the other half of the meeting. That's all I know about what the structure is looking like.
Okay, let me just take the next piece, because we went through that relatively quickly. And the next piece is workflow, and I put this on the agenda. And Taji and I have already talked to Theo about this, but there are a few things that just wanted to like put down on the, not in writing, but like in the community about workflow. And this includes the quarterly report. So Theo did an amazing job putting this together, and then Taji and I worked through the annual report. And so what we would like to see is a regular rollout of those quarterly reports. The first quarter ends on March 30th. So the report would be due to the steering committee by the April steering committee, so the beginning of April, and then people can give feedback, and then it would be presented to the full body. I don't think these quarterly reports need to be voted on. They're basically just a rundown of what we've done. It's not going to include, like the annual report, a sort of executive summary by the director, by the co-chairs. It's just going to be a rundown of what we've done. But it does raise the questions that Zainab raised at the full board meeting about the structure of the report, and so I wanted to raise that now. If there are specific recommendations about how you would like to see, or anyone would like to see, that quarterly report structured differently, then it could be now, or it could just be passed on to Theo at some other point, so that we could have a structure that we just use going forward. I mean, we basically invented it on the
Template is
fly.
what he's talking about.
Template, exactly.
I know.
Amy.
Sorry.
I've got my mic on. She didn't know that.
Template, that's the word.
Basically, let me see if I understand. You said this is a quarterly report on the things that PCCEP is doing?
Yes.
Okay. My thought, and what I find easy to read, is sort of like laying it out by like header and bullet points, like making it simple, to read through, so that we get the highlights. And then if people want more description, we can provide it later. But I don't know, for me, I like it visual and simple, because that way the community can understand what we're doing without a whole lot of text.
That's a good feedback in terms of formatting. So Theo, maybe there's some way and there might be like a way to do an executive, not an executive summary, but like a summary, and then you later, if you want to read through the whole thing, has like a fuller description. But we could figure out the formatting. But I think I hear Amy's point. Zainab.
Yeah, thanks. I really was focusing on basically the goals or the strategies, I guess each year, if we have a goal and if we're meeting those goals and if we identify what they are, so we can track where we are. I guess I was really referring to maybe the wrong document, but I keep referring to the charter of what PCCEP is intended to do. And perhaps we can adjust based on each committee or subcommittee and their reports. So having the subcommittees provide information to Theo or whoever collects information so that he has the information to make sure that we're meeting our goals, or if we have established goals for each year. I'm not sure. Again, I'm new, I know. I could be just, yes, thank you.
No, that's, I think you raised a good point. And in terms of the goals as laid out in the charter, we are supposed to have a particular number of meetings. So that's laid out in the report. We are supposed to make recommendations. That's laid out in the report. We're also supposed to be reviewing directives. So we haven't been good at that, but that hopefully going forward we'll be doing. And then engaging the community, I think, is the big one. And various people have raised questions about which communities we're engaging and whether we're engaging enough of the community. And we tried to get at that somewhat in the annual report by talking about numbers. There were some questions and discussion about whether, you know, X number of people were at certain meetings. But the numbers we can give for this year are pretty accurate because they're based on Zoom, where we have a pretty good count. But I think that those are the kind of benchmarks we could lay out. Now there's broader goals we are going to be trying to achieve this particular year, including the Core Patrol and including maybe the TRC. So we could think about those as sort of broader strategic goals. And I think those change year to year. So maybe highlighting that in the quarterly report to suggest like how we're moving forward on that, and also whether our recommendations are being adopted would be a really useful thing to have in that report.
Oh, sorry, Jen, I saw your hand up, but before you jump in, thank you, Elliot. I know Vadim is not here, but one of the things that we were having that email correspondence about, and something that I know that it is something that I have been thinking about too since I reread the mission statement, is this relationship or building this relationship with police. And so I want to also be able to make sure that we incorporate that type of language in the report, as well as having the PPB or whoever represents them be able to include their piece to the report, as well as that shows that there's a relationship. So that's just my, thank you.
Okay, Anne.
Do you want to respond to that piece before I mentioned the piece about the police having, you know, and
well, my view, yeah, I mean, my view on that personally is that this is the report of what PCCEP has done. So we don't give members of the public or groups from the public a space in the report to talk about whatever they want to talk about, and neither. I don't think that our report is the place for the police to have a space. It's basically a report on our activities which involve the police, but it's our accounting. I mean, it's similarly, you know, the police reports don't have a space for PCCEP to respond.
And not going back and forth with you, Elliot, I understand where you're coming from as well. I just know that piece continues to weigh on when it says building trust in police. And if that's one of our missions, if that's part of the mission statement, then it's difficult to say, why is PCCEP doing this? But this is what's in the mission statement. So I'm not trying to question the mission statement itself, but if it's in the mission statement, then how are we delivering that as a committee?
Respond to that, Anne, real quick.
Okay
if I respond to that, Anne, real quick.
Say it again?
Go for it.
Oh,
respond to that real quick. I know you have your hand up. I just wanted to say, if you saw that email last week that Lakianis and Marcia sent out about their meeting with the chief and the mayor, that was a really good sign, and I'm glad that PPB aired that to us in that setting. And I'm excited to meet with I believe it was Assistant Chief Davis, I might be wrong on that, about like better ways we can be connecting more, and whether it's like more PPB members coming. And another thing is when we had non-COVID stuff, there was a lot more ways to engage with the police. We had a ride along set up, we had the Citizen Academy, there was just like a lot more opportunities from what I understood, even only being on it for like a month without COVID. And so I'm excited to sort of see ways we can do this in a virtual setting, whether that's more meeting attendance, more offline meetings with PPB, and better ways to connect. And I think there's more ways to embed that in the strategic plan going forward. So I see where you're coming from, and I definitely cannot wait to see how we can do that this year.
Okay,
yeah.
Anne.
Everyone.
Yes, I also wanted to say that, you know, I see my personal view is that we are here to advise the mayor on issues relative to the police, and also help the police to get a better relationship with the community. And so we can hopefully facilitate that. And I think that others have said how we do that in meetings, reaching out. I know I go to various meetings where there are PPB members there, and trying to build relationship so that we can also kind of, you know, help each other, I guess. The reason I raised my hand though is I know that you brought up directives, and I just wanted to say quickly, as we know, we have now come up with a process for reviewing them, and tomorrow we will be reviewing 3 directives that are at our settlement and policy subcommittee meeting at 4:30, and I'm really hoping that we have a lot of people there to have a good discussion about those. And then we will bring those comments back to the full board for a vote, and then hopefully put them as comments on the directives website. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and just in terms of other workflow things, I talked to Theo about this as well, that when we do recommendations or vote on anything really, that Claudia, because I believe she's the one who does our social media, you know, should be, you know, that night or the next day, putting that out to the community through social media that we've, you know, here's the thing we voted on and adopted, so that we could sort of communicate that, because a lot of what happens in PCCEP is people aren't aware of, and people don't go to websites, so you need to reach them through social media and the email listserv, which we should also be sending it out on. So that's sort of regular informing the community of what we're doing, I think would be great. And then in terms of our recommendations, we talked about creating a spreadsheet that would list all of the recommendations in a chronological way that's easy to read, because we've talked about this incessantly. The website just doesn't work for that. So we need to create another way, and just a spreadsheet that people could download that's regularly updated with what our recommendations are, and links to them would be a real improvement. And because we did that work for the annual report, at this point, it's just taking that and then updating any new ones and continuing that. Amy?
Yes, question for you guys. Something just came to me about, can we possibly start a blog or a discussion directly on the PCCEP website? Because we're asking people to go there to look at the calendar, find information, but there doesn't seem really a way to make it where others can read what others have posted. You know, a blog or whatever a response is, so that everyone gets to read what people are writing, you know, and if we don't like it, we can take it off. But is there a way to create a free flowing like chat blog on that website?
That's a great question. Claudia might be the best person to answer that. Claudia? She's not eating dinner.
I'm right here, sorry. Can you repeat that? Sorry, my computer's been running slow today, so I was pulling the volume up.
Claudia, it was just about if the website allows people to have ongoing discussions, like live discussions, in kind of in a blog format. Is that right, Amy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can communicate and leave, like we post something that we want comments on right there on the website. We could then have a section that has the comment boxes right there, just like they do with LinkedIn and some of these other professional sites. So we can see right then and there what people are thinking when we go to the website. Like if I go to the website, I can catch up on a particular subject that we're trying to promote, answers, and I can read what people are saying. And
yeah, no, I definitely get what you're trying to say. And as of now, I don't see that feature on the website, but that doesn't mean that it can't be added. There's like some things that I can do on my own, and then there's some things that I have to contact BTS for. So I can always check in with them and see if that's something that we can add to the website. And if it is, then they'll be able to do that, or they can guide me on how to do that. So I can check in with them about that, because I already have something else that I have to check in with them.
That would be
Adding
awesome.
about
Or
the
a
website.
discussion board, whatever would make it legal to have conversations documented.
Yeah, I can check
whatever
in
it
about a
is.
comment board and see if that's a feature that is possible to add to the website.
Yeah, I wonder, there seems to be some like immediate knee-jerk reaction to that, just for like personal attacks that could be made from members or comments. Not all community members are always gonna bring their best selves to the posting board, and we do have social media stuff. So the Twitters, I think. I'm sorry, I'm not good at social media. Oh, and Jared just mentioned Facebook. Yeah, so I think there are venues where folks could comment on things that are posted. So I think it's just about getting everything posted, like the recommendations posted,
Yeah.
and everything posted. But I think like monitoring that and deleting when needed, or because personal attacks shouldn't remain up there or anything like that. Anyway, so I just have a couple of reactions to that.
Zainab, did you have a?
Yeah, my question is really like who would be responsible for monitoring regularly so that are not, go out of control. But I also agree that there are other mediums that PCCEP can use that already exist, like Facebook and Twitter, and you just put out there, and then maybe whoever committee, whoever puts the information out there who wants to solicit comments, monitor. To me, just put what happened, but wait it so that it doesn't get out of control, and that if comments go to a point where it isn't good for the PCCEP committee and we're not monitoring it, that could really be an issue. And I'm not sure who monitors Facebook and Twitter now, but yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Facebook is limited. A professional cannot download Facebook on their work computer. I'm trying to get a broader community response. And so I just want you guys to know that Facebook is not accessible to most folks working in a working environment. So you got to have an open mind about this. We got to figure out some other way to get.
Amy,
Okay,
Amy,
so
Amy,
let's.
we raised
Could
it,
we?
Go ahead.
Maybe we could just. I think the idea that Amy proposed, what we could do is Claudia could look into the feasibility, whether it could go to the website, and then at the next month's steering committee, bring back ideas, and we could have, think about it over this month about whether either that or figure out like what venues exist for engaging the broader community, as Amy says. But I am aware of time, and I want to pass it back to Taji for our next topic.
Yeah, we're really behind on schedule, and I want to make sure we can get to the important point, which is the agenda for the meeting, for the February meeting as well. So I'm going to say that, well, I will start with just this, and we'll just open it right away. And then if there's no comments on it, then I don't know exactly how much planning work besides the outreach to the community for this is, because we've done these before, but the COCO report came out. I read through it, some very interesting stuff, especially related to the use of force section. That's the only section they marked as the part that was not in compliance from the initial marking of being in compliance. And so there's definitely some fruitful stuff to talk about. And we, I think, have a tentative date of the 23rd. Now I'm just realizing it. This might be too many February things, but we'll have to make it work. Wait, when did I saw February 23rd, but
I think that's because we talked about having it during our full board meeting, which was the 23rd.
Sorry, Tahaji, I didn't mean to mute you. I was trying to unmute myself, but yeah, the full board meeting is on the 23rd, and then I believe you guys are trying to have the town hall on the 25th or the 24th.
No,
if I'm not mistaken.
what I thought, because we were going to have the core patrol also around that time, we didn't want to have two extra ones, so we wanted to build it into the full board meeting. So I guess maybe we should make this one agenda item, see how many items we have. But Janice Rosenbaum reached out and asked whether we're confirmed for the 23rd. So I would like to propose that we do it on the 23rd. We give either an hour or an hour and a half to it, and that we limit their presentation to 20 minutes. we circulate the report ahead of time and encourage people to read through it, but leave the bulk of the time for the community to comment, because I think it's not a very good use of the time for them to go through this extensive report for an hour, which is what happened the last time.
Thank you, Elliot. And then Anne, and then there was, and I think Theo and Claudia had hands.
Just relative to that, having the COCL not a standalone event, I know that we kind of ran into some trouble doing that prior when we had them kind of taking over Amy's meeting. Amy, so, you know, it was so great that she said, I want to involve them in my meeting, but it became the meeting. So I'm just wondering about that. I think it should be a standalone.
I thought we agreed that it has to be a standalone event.
Amy, could you please raise your hand, because there's two other people. Claudia, I think you had your hand, or Theo. Go ahead if you had the same.
I was basically going to say that, yeah, I think that you guys had agreed to have the the COCL Town Hall on its own, and that report was sent out to the community, and I'm happy to send it out again prior to you guys preparing for when that town hall will be coming out. And then also one more thing, the Settlement and Agreement and Policy Subcommittee is planning to present, as what I can see from the recommendation that they put together on the 23rd, a recommendation on the public supportive expansion of the Public Safety Support Specialist Program. So that may be an agenda item that will be put on that full board meeting for the 23rd. But they are meeting tomorrow, and so things may change.
Thank you, Claudia. And so one other thing I would say to that is that it might make, I think we should, based on the amount of meetings we're already having for Court Patrol and for the other meetings, that it could be made possible to happen in the meeting on the 23rd. And that I think it only seems relevant for them to even just talk about, I can't remember the section number, but the use of force section, which is the only section that was out of compliance. They've already gone through the rest of the sections and already said they were in compliance with the rest of those sections. So what's the point of them mentioning them? And so this use of force section is 3-ish pages, but it's definitely, there's no way they could make that last more than 30 minutes, especially if we told them we only want to hear about that section as it relates to what we're discussing in regards to them not being in compliance. That's my personal opinion on it, and that's why I think it could fit into an hour or an hour and 15 or something. Jared, and then Theo.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a fine idea. I was just going to suggest also that, you know, there's no obligation for PCCEP to co-host the compliance officer. It is part of the mission to independently oversee implementation of the settlement agreement, but I hope you guys don't feel obligated. I do see that there's value to doing it, whether in a subcommittee, a special meeting, or the regular meeting. But I want to underscore that you guys have some flexibility. I don't think it's absolutely mandated.
Thank you. And then Theo.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think these are all points well taken. I just wanted to mention that condensing it won't work. Just in terms of inclusivity, it's important to consider those who have differences in reading capacity, and those who don't have the time or ability to read the reports that are provided, even if they're bulleted reports. Also, access to good screens. Some folks call into the meetings because some folks call into town halls. So it's important that the report be gone through in its entirety, because that's where a lot of folks get their information from that report, from the COCL report. So I do want to say that, and I'm not saying that it won't work. This is just my humble opinion, right? I'm not saying that my opinion is the right one, but I don't think it's doing the best thing that you can do for the community. I think that we have to allow, or PCCEP has to allow the community to hear all the information and then to respond. And I think at least 2 hours is what you're gonna need to allocate in terms of that.
Okay, so a lot's happening in the chat, and lots happening. So let's sort of I don't think there's a consensus here. I think some people have opinions. I personally don't want to have another meeting that's for another 2 hours for the town hall, but I understand if it makes more sense to go through the entire report in its entirety, just the entire report. Jared, is your hand still up? And then, Elliot, and then if your hand's still up, Jared, go ahead after.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't lower it after the last time. I'll lower it.
So I hear what you're saying, Theo, but I was sort of looking towards what is on the agenda for our 3-hour meeting, and the only thing besides the regular reports that I see is the PS3 recommendation, which, you know, usually those recommendations we give half an hour to. So I think that there would be close to 2 hours for the COCO report, and, you know, thinking about also the accessibility in terms of the community's time. How many people are going to be able to devote 6 hours in a week to going to a full board meeting and also going to a town hall? I think basically we were limiting ourselves to cop watch at that point, and, you know, those of us on PCCEP. So I really just am feeling my own bandwidth being stretched, and so want to make the most efficient use of our time. But I hear that we want to give that report, you know, ample time. So maybe a compromise could be that we shoot for like an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, and knowing that we only have one recommendation, and have COCO go through the report, but also maybe not reiterate some of the stuff that they've gone through in the past, you know, for the community, and focus on the things that we know generate the conversation, which
The
is
things that changed and the things that generate the conversation should be the focus. But I see them going through the whole thing, but in like not a verbatim word by word through the whole entire 60 or so page report, but like they should, you know, a slideshow with no more than you know, whatever time it needs to be to go through the whole thing. Theo?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Elliot. I think if there's ample time for the presentation in its entirety, and there's time for ample time for community comment, then I think getting it into the general body meeting is a great decision. I just wanted to reiterate how important it is for community comment and all that, because in the past, you know, we've had these town halls and there's been 15 minutes for community comment. People have been really upset. So we've learned, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, and then Anne.
Thank you. I just want to, I don't know if you saw Trudy Cooper, if community members disagree with the COCO's conclusions about compliance, how will it make sense to limit the meeting to only the section use of force that COCO believes is not in compliance? I just want to say again, we have done that where we have added them to a meeting and we didn't have it didn't work out. Do we need to have it the same week as our full meeting? That's one question I have. And then we haven't talked about our next meeting, but it's my hope that we'll have some directives to vote on, some issues that we come up with tomorrow to vote on as our directive process that we agreed upon. So we want to keep with that process. So we need a little more time in that meeting. You know, what we could do is have a shorter full body meeting too, full board meeting. So I just want to once again say that I think it's important that we have it a standalone.
I'll just quickly say that COCO is accepting public comment for that current quarterly report until February 23rd at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Claudia, and Anne, to your point, yeah, I think it might have, I don't know if we vote in steering committee meetings, I don't know if that's something we've ever done, but we might have to just vote on it amongst the members that are here. Is that a thing we can do? Or I don't know, like, because it seems like there's not a consensus about the way to go about moving forward with this, but that's just my opinion. Amy, go ahead.
I just had an idea that may work for everybody. Since everybody now is got like Zoom capabilities and recording, how about the Cocoa folks do a reading on a presentation on YouTube, and then we can post that video for folks to review and then work on the section that they're out of compliance on. That way, if folks had time, they can listen to it and then they could send us their comments and we could kind of kill two birds with one stone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So what I'm hearing from you is that we will ask Coco if they can make a pre-recorded presentation through the entirety of the report. And then at our town hall, we will focus on, we will listen to the community comment on anything, but we want them to talk at the presentation about the parts that are the things that have changed and led them to be out of compliance solely, and that they'll be able to read the entire report and Coco's sort of presentation on it and prior, and we'll post about it on all social media. And I think that I like that idea. Personally,
I love that. I love that idea, Amy. I think that really makes good use of time, and it also allows people time to look at the report and sort of rewind and take as much time as they need with it, and then it makes the most use of our time
and
together.
They can make it audio spoken so that people can hear it as well as read it. And a lot of us do better listening. You know, we're not all visual. So I would have somebody read it on a YouTube recording, and then bingo, folks can either read it along or they can listen.
Oh, I had a thought on that, but Theo, go ahead.
Sorry, Taji, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, I thought you meant, Amy, a presentation in the sense of like, they have a presentation with slides that go through some of the like key data points that they used in making their report and talk about the report generally speaking, because there are services available for free to have a report be or have any document read to you. My mom
I like what you're saying. I didn't interpret it that way, but I do like what you're saying. So I'm good with what you're suggesting.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, yes.
I like the idea too as well, because I think I remember the last meeting we were at with the Cocoa report. It just seemed like it was focusing on one area and not able to get through everything. And it also gives people opportunity to just focus on certain parts if they want to fast forward or, you know, whatever. But I also think that because everyone has a subcommittee or a committee that they can announce this with, but the meeting is when I'm just trying to manage time.
It's just going to be the same time as the standard full board meeting.
Taji, I'm sorry. The February 23rd is the cutoff for the feedback. Will they be able to do this before so that people have time to give?
I would ascertain that they could, especially if they're paid to do this.
Like we make sure we're giving them this in a timely fashion so that they can do what we're asking right now. Right. And so that we can give people opportunity by February 23rd to meet that deadline, or they can extend the deadline. I am not sure what.
Right. Yeah. So I definitely think if we tell them tonight or tomorrow that they could get it, they could turn around before the 23rd for sure. I would think it would be crazy if they couldn't. Theo?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the point of the town hall is like an interactive, like town halls are supposed to be interactive forums where there's questions and answers. There's a presentation, folks give answers to responses, and they don't have, like sometimes they can take written testimony and written comments and written questions and all that kind of stuff, but the feedback usually isn't as quick in those kinds of things. So the point of these town halls is to have the interaction with the compliance officer from the community, right? So it feels like if you're doing both of those things, if you're having the pre-recording and the town hall, then great. Then that's a surplus of information. You want to do that. But if it's one or the other, then in my mind,
I don't think it was one or the other. I apologize. As I was saying, it is the pre-recorded, I almost said lecture, pre-recorded presentation, and then which would go through the entire report. And if they have a presentation they're already working on for the entire report, and they would be sharing that at that pre-recorded time or pre-recorded video. And then at the 23rd board meeting, we will save an hour and a half, I think, considering the fact that we'll have allow people to look at the video plus review the whole thing if they want to. We will want them to give we want them to just go through the parts of the recommendation that are related to to them being out of compliance. That will sort of review those at the meeting, which should take less than 30 minutes, and then spend the rest of the hour responding to any part of the report. Sorry, somebody back and forth.
So it's assuming
Yes.
people have read through the whole report.
No, because people have the opportunity either to read it or to see the presentation.
Or to
but
and
yes,
to
we're,
even see a reiteration of the presentation's key points that relate to the lack of compliance.
Okay, well, I just admitted somebody from Coco right now to this call, so perhaps we can ask Tom.
oh, Tom.
It's not going to be a good welcome.
Tom, welcome. Are you there?
Welcome, Tom.
Yes,
Tom, are you? Okay, so we're just having a conversation about Coco and how we're going to include you in the 23rd meeting. And Amy came up with a brilliant idea, which we hope you'll be able to do, which is to have you pre-record a PowerPoint presentation of the whole report, something that you sort of did in our last meeting, and then post that. We could post that so that people could come to the meeting having already seen that. And then at the meeting, you would just focus on the areas that are out of compliance. And we estimate that would take somewhere around less than half an hour, because we want to leave ample time for people, the public, to comment. Is that something you think you could do?
You forgot to say YouTube video.
It would be, yeah.
So it would be posted on YouTube. Yeah.
I'll have to see what our abilities are to do that. I would have to talk that over with Dennis and Amy, though. I guess one concern that I might have is our reports are available before the town halls normally, and people people reading those isn't as consistent. And so my concern is people being actually seeing it before the town hall. And to your point about the non-compliance areas, those are the pieces that would take probably the most bit of time. I think back in our last town hall, we somewhat we covered the areas that were still in compliance, but I think a bulk of our time was still dedicated to the non-compliance areas for that report. So I don't know if that would only take a half hour, particularly since even in our last report, we had just said we just didn't have the documentation. Now we have the documentation, and you can see from our report kind of the detail that we went into it. But let me talk that over. Let me talk it over with Dennis and with Amy Ruiz, and we can get back to you.
Okay, Theo, we're really bad on time. Is it?
Just a quick question. It just doesn't seem like there's going to be a good solution to this. It looks like there's going to have to be another meeting. What if the COCO just had its own meeting with PCCEP member attendance being optional?
Was that a question for me, Theo?
Yeah.
For the PCCEP general body.
I don't like the idea of having. I mean, PCCEP member attendance, I guess, is optional at a lot of these town halls, but I think that this is central and we would all want to be there. So I don't think it really alleviates the problem of if we're going to do it then in that week, and it seems like we should, given the deadlines around which they're asking for public comment, that we're asking people to spend 6 hours or 5 hours of their week at PCCEP meetings, and that just seems like a lot to me.
Well, we have done a town hall on our own before because there was a scheduling conflict with PCCEP. I just have to go off of what the settlement agreement says, is that, you know, for each report, we give a town hall. The settlement agreement, I think, says it can be done in coordination with PCCEP, and that's obviously what we've preferred to do in the past. If that's not, if there's a scheduling, or if there's a, you know, going over that, I mean, I understand that. And so, like I said, I think our preference would be to do it with PCCEP.
Could we have,
But
like,
also-
would you be able to go through the non-compliant stuff in an hour?
Would we be able to go through the non-compliant stuff in an hour? I believe so. I think our last presentation with everything was 45 minutes to an hour. And that was with people asking questions, I think sometimes during the presentation. There's a couple of questions that got raised, I believe, during the presentation. So I think that's doable. I mean, I think that's what our last presentation was about 45 minutes or so for the presentation. And then I think we took comments and questions for the next hour and 15 minutes, I believe. Theo, you might know, you know, the time of that better. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it was about 45 minutes to an hour, which is, we're just trying to save people some time. So that's what we were thinking about. If you could do the video recording of the parts that you already went over, and which are basically a repeat from the last time, and focus on what has changed between the last report, that, you know, half an hour to 45 minutes seems like it should be sufficient, given
Yeah,
that it's
I
more
think
limited.
I think that we can try. Again, we're talking a 50-page report. It's hard to go through it very quickly, but I think we can try to do it. Again, I think my biggest concern would be if we posted the presentation, people who want to attend the meeting may not see the presentation, in the sense that that's why we give the presentation, because there's some people that can't read the report, and that's fine. That's why we give the presentation. But if there's people who can't watch the presentation beforehand, then for the benefit of everybody, that's, I think, why we like to give the presentation all at once, and everybody can hear the same thing.
Yeah, so we'll probably just have to keep talking offline about this, like, very quickly, just as stuff is coming up quickly. But we have to just sort of get to the other agenda item. And Amy, do you have a quick comment, or was your comment answered, or a question answered?
No, my question was, Tom, you said that the report and all the information is available now for folks to read and comment on. Do we have that link posted on our website?
Yes.
Then
Sent out to the
they would not need to do a video because they've already have it up and running.
No, they just have the.
So yeah, we'll table this and have this conversation. I just want to make sure we can get to the other agenda item. And we discussed the issue with just having the report laid out on paper. We would want it presented in one form or another.
Taji, I also want to go back to saying I really like the idea, and I think we all were on board with that idea about having them present something like a webinar or something that shows it full, so that when we go to the meeting, we don't have to take 8 hours or 6 hours to read the whole report. It's already out there. And for those who are not like challenged when it comes to reading full documents, or they could just understand more by visuals, that's great. But hopefully offline, something will come with that. But I saw a date. I have to get off real quick. I'm sorry. I saw a date, February. I'm trying to get my calendar straight with everything. So if we can get our dates of all the meetings on a calendar, so we can make sure that we save them, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Yeah, the calendar, the best referred calendar is the one that Theo and Claudia sends to your Portland Gov email. But we'll make sure those are, Theo, can you just make sure all the dates are updated? So the other agenda item, which is the updates from PPB on the recommendations that we have, and we have about 5 minutes here. Mary Claire, do you have any updates from the PPB on any of the recommendations that we have currently passed?
Sorry, Taji, I thought that somebody was going to send me which
recommendations. You were looking for updates, but if you want to tell me which ones they are or ask, I mean, I can do my
Yes.
best. Yeah, you were going to send them to me.
Right. I was still compiling those. I didn't finish that, but the one that we would like to, I did mention to you, we'd like to know the status of duty to intervene and training to support it.
That, yeah, that I can give you. We're in the process of pursuing the ABLE training, which is a national, intervention training program that was initiated as EPIC in New Orleans. A lot of cities wanted to replicate it, so it ended up being centered at Georgetown University at the law school, and they have a program to train the trainers. We have had 4 members of the Bureau, the Assistant Chief Resch, a sergeant, and 2 officers have already completed that, train the trainer, and we're now in the process of going through the steps to get, to set the whole training up. We expect to have we made a commitment to train all Bureau members by the end of the year. So we'll have to develop a policy to train to. The training itself is already, actually packaged. If you do the ABLE training, you have to use their materials. So that will make it a little bit easier. We're not starting from scratch. We'll be training on the materials that they give us. So yeah, we're moving ahead on that. We met the other day with all the members. We have, timelines and action items that we're pursuing. So yeah, that one's
Thank you.
moving.
And I think in my review, currently the only other one that is still up to get status is procedural justice, and you're waiting for us to give our feedback on your proposal about our recommendation.
Yeah, no, the PCCEP gave us a recommendation to develop a policy. We accepted that recommendation, developed a policy, provided it to PCCEP, and now it's up to PCCEP to give us their comments on that draft policy in order for us to go forward. Yes, so we've done that.
What does the ABL stand for, please?
Active bystander law enforcement training, basically. So it's basically to make, to train people how to intervene when they either, in order, to save lives, save careers, to train people to be able to intervene when they see something that, is, either illegal or out of policy or what have you. So that, as you saw with the situation in Minneapolis, people stood because they didn't feel able to intervene. So we're going to do some training to, hopefully address those kind of issues.
And to your knowledge, is there any other recommendations that we have given that has been passed by PCCEP and the mayor that have not been addressed by PPB at this time?
No, we got 2 recent last week, so I'll be taking those to the chief. They had asked for, we ended up, you did one on the identification. We did put bigger numbers on the helmets, as you all know, in the summer, as soon as that came up. But we didn't formally respond to that recommendation, so we're going to do that, but it was done so that people, so they could be identified more easily. The officers could by the bigger numbers on helmets and jackets and stuff. So I think that's the only one that
was the directive updated in accordance with that?
We didn't need a directive update on that. It's not required. The directive wouldn't be needed to change that. That's just a a procedural thing. So it just the policy already says that they have to have their name or number on their uniform. So we're just enlarging the size. So
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, and then, I mean, with that, we can almost call the agenda to a close. I just wanted to reiterate the agenda items for the February meeting from my understanding now, and please add any if I forgot. The SAP recommendation from the Settlement Agreement Policy Committee, the COCL Town Hall, which will be an ample amount of the time, and then the directive comments and vote. And then I don't know if we traditionally give any input on what happened at the retreat to the general body. I don't think I do, but if we do, then we do. Maybe no. And then if there's any large updates on TAC, those things are all developing as we speak. So I don't know, but I think it should have an agenda item because I might have, there either will be a letter written or there'll be something changing about it, hopefully before we meet. And so I think that would be an agenda item as well. Am I forgetting anything else?
No, but I would just say that the stuff like TAC maybe put at the end because we want to reserve the bulk of the time for the COCL report and for the votes, make sure the votes on those recommendations happen. The TAC update, I think, could happen, you know, if we have time, or be kicked down the road if we don't.
I just want to jump in. Mary Claire, if you're still there, I did not capture what ABL means. Could you please reiterate what that means for us?
Sorry, it's active bystander for law enforcement training. So AB, active bystander, and the LE stands for law enforcement. So active bystander training for law enforcement.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, and with that, I think we are going to close our steering committee meeting, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon.
Good night.
Afternoon.